To ensure the seamless integration of autonomous vehicles into traffic, it is crucial to address communication with external road users, especially pedestrians. External human-machine interfaces, known as eHMIs, have attracted increasing attention in recent years. These interfaces aim to convey the intentions or operational states of AV to pedestrians. Current findings have shown that the presence of eHMI makes it easier for pedestrians to make crossing decisions, enhancing trust, acceptance, user experience, and perceived safety. However, the majority of eHMI research has focused on single vehicle, single pedestrian scenarios. It is important to ensure eHMI can scale up in more complex traffic environments. When there are more AVs present on the street, one potential issue concerns information overload. This happens when pedestrians encounter numerous eHMIs with different variations in designs or messages. Another issue concerns the liability of instructing pedestrians to cross and the potential over-reliance on eHMIs. This issue is evident in a scenario where one AV stops, and its eHMI indicates it is safe for pedestrians to cross. However, vehicles on the other lane may not stop yet. To address these challenges, eHMI research has been looking into vehicle-to-everything (V2X) communication technologies. In this communication network, vehicles can interact with virtually every entity in the vicinity, including infrastructures, pedestrians, and other vehicles. The interconnected eHMIs is a V2X-based solution. By networking eHMIs, they can obtain data from multiple vehicles. This approach aims to reduce variations and ensure consistency in message delivery. While interconnected eHMIs hold great potential, so far there has been only one empirical study by Colley and College in 2020. The research focused on auditory interconnected eHMIs designed to assist visually impaired pedestrians. There are two elements in their proposed concept. Single vehicle communication. This means only one vehicle is responsible for communicating with pedestrians. Adaptive communication. In particular, a vehicle aware of the overall traffic situations might play an audio message saying, "I'm stopping, you can cross." However, in certain situations, for example, in the presence of a manually driven vehicle, the message will be shortened to "I'm stopping" to avoid instructing pedestrians to cross. To further explore interconnected eHMIs, our study focused on visual-based design concepts, because the majority of pedestrian population relies heavily on visual cues when navigating traffic. In the following section, we are going to present the conceptualization of both unconnected and interconnected eHMIs for easier understanding and comparison. Let's first look at the unconnected eHMI concept. Informed by existing literatures, three different visual representations were selected for the unconnected eHMI. Each corresponds to a specific state of the vehicle. When the vehicle is driving autonomously, the light band will display a solid blue light. When the vehicle starts yielding to pedestrians, the light band changes to a sweeping animation. When the vehicle fully stops, it projects a green pedestrian crossing. These eHMI are on every vehicle, and each vehicle communicates individually its own decisions. Moving to the interconnected eHMIs, the cruising and yielding state remain the same and will be activated across the involved vehicles. This approach was informed by a study finding where pedestrians prefer to see individual AV responses. However, when the AV fully stops, only one delegated vehicle will project a pedestrian crossing. The color of the crossing reflects the safety of the situations. When the crossing is red, pedestrians should cross with caution. When the crossing turns green, pedestrians know that they are safe to cross the entire street. There are a few design elements of the interconnected eHMIs that we would like to highlight. For the red crossing, the red color was chosen to mitigate the potential over-reliance of pedestrians on the eHMIs. In current traffic, especially in Australia, red markings on the street are used to capture the attention of drivers when they are approaching school zones or township entry. Therefore, we expect the red color to have a similar caution effect on pedestrians. Previous study by Callum and colleagues highlighted the lack of pedestrian awareness about connected vehicle technologies, which could lead to distrust in the design concepts. As a result, we also include a connectivity symbol and synchronize the lightband animations across the eHMIs to suggest connectivity between vehicles. Now we are going to show the simulation of the eHMIs in virtual reality. We designed an experimental study with two research questions. The first question concerns the impact of interconnected eHMIs on pedestrian cognitive load, safety, and trust. To answer these questions, we had a within-subject factor where all participants experienced three conditions: baseline, unconnected, and interconnected eHMI. There were three scenarios per condition. The differences lie in the second lane, where the behavior of the vehicles varied to mitigate potential habituation and show that participants could experience the desired concept in various traffic situations. Regarding the second questions, because interconnected eHMI are a relatively new concept, we want to determine whether the impact of interconnected eHMIs depends on the user understanding of the technology. We hypothesized that users with a foundational understanding of interconnected eHMIs could demonstrate greater trust and more efficient interaction with the system. To address these questions, the study design has a between-subject factor where participants were randomly allocated to two groups. One group was provided with information about interconnected eHMIs, and the other group was not given this information. Here is an overview of the study procedures. The study lasted between 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the participant's familiarity with VR. We employ both subjective and objective methods for data collection. For quantitative data, we utilize linear mixed model for analysis. For qualitative data, we employ a deductive thematic analysis process. To minimize negative psychological effect when participants having virtual collisions, when a collision happens, the simulation will trigger a sound, notify participants of the collision, and immediately pausing the scenario. Based on the collision data, interconnected eHMIs recorded the highest number of collisions, followed by unconnected eHMIs and baseline. When analyzing the cause of collisions, there were 10% of collisions caused by misinterpretation of eHMIs, and all of these happened in the scenarios with unconnected eHMIs. Participants adopted the most cautious approach in the baseline condition, waiting longer on the sidewalk and experiencing fewer collisions. In terms of experiences, the baseline condition performed less effectively than the eHMIs in the perceived safety and trust in automation subscale. However, there was no significant differences in workload and other trust subscales. Moving to the qualitative feedback, for unconnected eHMIs, the green crossing evoked positive feelings such as safety, confidence, and comfort. The concept is easy to understand, its simplicity and consistency promote trust. However, after crossing the first lane, there was uncertainty about intention of vehicles in the second lane. Participants also mentioned how the concept created a false sense of safety. For interconnected eHMIs, the red crossing led to cautious behavior among participants. Participants enjoyed the additional layer of information not only about AV intent, but also about the broad the broader traffic situations. They also perceive the information to be reliable. However, design elements such as the red color and Wi-Fi signal was confusing, especially among those who did not have prior knowledge about interconnected eHMIs. There were several implications from these findings. First, is it crucial to strike a delicate balance between trust and overtrust? Our grade crossing aimed to promote caution, however, feedback was divergent. We encourage future research to explore more effective design strategies. Second, the term interconnected HMIs serve an overarching concept encompassing various representations. While our study explores a centralized communication approach, future research may explore alternative representations. Finally, we observe that when it comes to safety and workload, the baseline condition remains a very competitive option. We encourage more rigorous testing in mixed traffic contexts to ensure eHMI design do not complicate the pedestrian decision-making process. Regarding the impact of knowledge, the difference between the two groups of participants was only found when it comes to understandability, predictability. Surprisingly, those in the knowledge group had significantly lower ratings. While the knowledge group seemed to have a more favorable view of the interconnected eHMI, the absence of an interaction effect suggests that information alone does not uniquely change the way users respond to different eHMI designs. This observation might be explained by theory-practice gap. While reading materials provide a theoretical perspective, experiencing the concept in a scenario emphasizes practice. For complex design concepts, education should ideally balance theory and practice. Here are our study limitations. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me and my co-authors.